This is the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast with Nick Cattles.
This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use code CLNS and $50 instantly when you play $5. Also, check out our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. You want to also eat smart with Factor, factormeals.com/Bedard50 off. You want to use that code Bedard50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. And Noturno Home Services, Greg's home comfort company. If you're looking for a team that puts your comfort first, visit noturnohome.com/Bedard for 10% off your next service. All right, let's get to the headlines, Greg. Let's start with Jabrill Peppers. Apparently in court yesterday, or it was maybe earlier this morning, pretty sure it was yesterday, he actually copped to cocaine possession. And I was just kind of thinking of this. With Mike Vrabel in town, we don't really know kind of where Vrabel lands with stuff like this. Just the fact that Peppers admitted to possessing cocaine, could Peppers end up being a Mike Vrabel casualty?
It's interesting. I mean, back in the day, I don't know, probably like 10 years ago or something like that, like this, he would, if he was already in the NFL program, he would be suspended and things like that. Largely street drugs don't do anything to NFL players anymore. Pot or cocaine. I mean, put you into the program, the substance abuse program, but it's really limited on what they do as far as street drugs anymore. My guess with Vrabel is that for a lot of people, things are going to be a clean start. I think I think that's the way Vrabel's going to handle it. I mean, look, he could cut Jabrill Peppers tomorrow, but I do think that Jabrill Peppers, if he, comes back in line and does the right things, I mean, look, he's a good player when everything's right for this team. And I think he's Vrabel's type of player. He's tough, he's hard nosed, he's a veteran, he's been around, helps the team be multiple. So, I mean, I guess I would be surprised if Vrabel moved on from him a little bit, but yeah, I mean, we have to see how all of this stuff advances under Vrabel. We really aren't sure how he's going to handle these things.
And by the way, Peppers, that was from this morning, his court appearance. So they had to delay it a day because something funky happened. So that was this morning. So Thursday morning is when he admitted to the cocaine possession. So we'll keep an eye on that and see how things kind of unfold with Peppers in his legal situation. Let's talk about Josh McDaniels for a minute. Greg, you and I, we did not get to discuss Josh McDaniels. We did a breaking news podcast with John Zanis the other night. You've had 36 hours or so to sit on this and think about it. Any new thoughts, any more thoughts than you might have had initially when the hire was made official?
Well, I mean, I tweeted this out the other day. I mean, because, you typically get the same sort of, pushback on McDaniels, and it's old and it's tired. Can we do something new? And then, of course, the BS sports talk radio stuff about like, is this Mike Vrabel's hire or is this the Crafts? And is it because he's cheap and he's this and that? Like, it's just, I mean, speaking of tired, I mean, it's just so, predictable in this market that's where they come. I mean, look, the bottom line is Josh McDaniels is damn good at what he does. And like, I was having a little back and forth with Dan Lifshatz the other day because obviously, obviously he hates Josh McDaniels.
Nothing beats a back and forth with Dan Lifshatz on Twitter.
Yeah.
I've had many of them.
I finally muted the conversation because I was like, this is stupid. I mean, obviously Josh did something to Dan that caused him to lose a lot of money in betting, so he hates Josh McDaniels. But I mean, I don't know how anybody can, and people love to poke holes in 2021, including Lifshatz, talking about how, like, short fields and stuff like that. Like, fine, you want to do that to throw context into like they were sixth in points scored, that's fine. But when you look at like the key numbers for that year, when you had a rookie quarterback in Mac Jones, you had, all these guys who were new to the offense, like Bourne, Henry, Aguilar, Jonnu Smith, Ramondre Stevenson, was a rookie that year. People talk about, oh, it's going to be too complicated and this and that. I mean, here are some of the numbers from that year, which a lot of them have nothing to do with having short fields and the defense being really good and all that stuff. They were third best. And so it's a good number. Third best in the NFL in plays for negative or 0 yards. They were fourth in 3-and-out percentage. They were fourth in rush EPA. They were eighth in plays of 20-plus yards. They were 10th in plays of 10-plus yards. They were 10th in third down percentage. They were 11th in offensive touchdowns. They were 11th in red zone TD percentage. They were 12th in offensive and pass EPA. The only thing, when I was looking back at those numbers, the only thing that they were bad at compared to the rest of the league when you looked at it were deep, explosive pass plays. And I think we can chalk up a lot of that stuff to Mac Jones, and also that they didn't really have a receiver or weapons that really majored in that. And so, we know now they have Drake May, and we know Drake May's best attribute outside of just being an athlete and be able to create plays with his legs is his deep ball accuracy. It's outstanding.
Yeah.
And as long as they get him weaponry, which I think they will, that can do that, I think they'll be fine. So, I know that Josh McDaniels is a polarizing guy. I don't know if it's about his face, his visor, how young he looks, whatever it is that he, maybe people find him punchable, but I think he's outstanding at what he does. I think he's really good at developing quarterbacks. I think he's done it with so many different times with so many iterations of this offense. Everybody knows. I mean, from Matt Castle to making Cam Newton somewhat functional, getting Jimmy Garoppolo ready to play from where he was as a rookie, which was, kind of a disaster coming from Eastern Illinois as far as being able to operate an NFL offense. And, I think it's a tremendous hire. I think it's going to be great that you basically have two head coaches. You have, Mike Vrabel, who can oversee everything and the defense. And then you have Josh McDaniels, who can handle the offense. And hopefully he gets to bring in his type of guys to coach, especially offensive line, wide receivers, and things like that. I just think and they add Terrell Williams, defensive coordinator. The grown-ups are back in charge in Foxborough, and I think it's great for the Patriots.
All right, well, we'll unpack some of the other stuff you just brought up at the end there in a little bit. But as far as McDaniels, I love the hire. He was the guy that I wanted them to hire. If you're going with an experienced play caller, he made a lot of sense for all the things we've talked about. You look at 2021, couple of other numbers, even though they weren't big time on explosive plays, they did finish 7th in pass yards per play that year with Mac Jones. And as far as running the football, they were 3rd in the NFL in rushing success rate. So field position, no field position, whatever. If you just look at it from a play-to-play basis and you stack their numbers up with other teams, it was a successful offense. They were 10th in DVOA that year in 2021. They had the 10th best offense in football according to DVOA. So I think it's pretty safe to say it was a good season, and it was a very good season for McDaniels. The other idea about how Mac Jones just fell off a cliff at the end of the year, breaking news, that's not true. I know people like to kind of reshape things over time. So let me kind of fill in the blanks here. At the end of the season, if you look at Mac Jones's stats overall, yes, they were much worse the final month of the season than they were his first 13 games. His completion percentage went from 70% down to just under 60%. He had 16 touchdowns the first 13 games. He had 6 in his last month. He had 8 interceptions his first 13 games. He had 5 in his last month. His passer rating from the first 13 games went from a 97 to 79.7. Okay, let me try to add the context. There was one god-awful game that Mac Jones played in that final month against Buffalo that was just egregiously bad. There was also one great game that pumped up some of the stats that was unbelievably terrific. Against Buffalo, Mac threw no touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and he had a passer rating of 31.4. That was not the wind game. That was after the wind game. Just a bad, awful performance. He was great against Jacksonville. 3 touchdowns, no picks, with a 128 quarterback rating. So just remove those 2 games, okay? Take out the worst, take out the best. His other 2 games in the final month of the season was pretty much what you would expect from a rookie quarterback after film had been established, which is to say he was, for all intents and purposes, Greg, average. Against Indianapolis, his passer rating was 74. He threw a couple touchdowns. He threw a couple picks. Against Miami, his passer rating was 91.1. He threw a touchdown. He threw a pick. It wasn't as if Mac Jones was a walking shit show the final 4 games of the season. But, you know, this revisionist history happens all the time. One other thing I would say, you know, 2011, for example, with McDaniels in LA with the Rams or St. Louis. Let me tell you what Josh McDaniels had as far as ingredients, okay? Sam Bradford, believe that was his 2nd year in the league. He played 10 games, got injured, done. The other 6 games that season, the quarterback was A.J. Feely and Kellen Clemens. His best receiver on that team for the Rams was Brandon Lloyd. You can literally look this up. There was almost nobody else. Danny Amendola played, I think, 1 game that year. Brandon Lloyd was his best receiver on that team. Brandon Lloyd, guess what, played 10 games. He missed 6 games that year. His running back was Steven Jackson, who was 28 years old. Steven Jackson actually ran for more than 1,100 yards that season with McDaniels as the OC.
Wow.
Jackson would move on at 29 and run for 1,000 yards, just over 1,000 yards the next season. And then guess what? He was dead to the world. And on top of that, you can Google this. Google it, folks. Google it. The Rams offensive line in 2011, Pro Football Focus ranked them 28th in the league. They had a bottom 5 offensive line. They had Sam Bradford, who never worked out in the NFL as a starting quarterback. And then they had A.J. Feely and Kellen Clemens. They had a 28-year-old running back who was about 18 months away from completely falling off the cliff. And they had one wide receiver who was worth a damn that actually stayed somewhat healthy, but still finished only 10 games. So you tell me, for a coach who ended up being fired in Steve Spagnuolo, you tell me what you expect. I mean, and I'm not saying that excuses everything, but Greg, am I wrong? When you look at OCs, man, the ingredients matter. And I think McDaniels is a guy that can get more from average players to above average players. But if you give him a crap sandwich, it's going to be a minor miracle if he can turn that into something that's edible. And with the Rams in 2011, he was given a big old fat ass crap sandwich.
Yeah, and plus, you know, that year, I mean, you know, Spags was sort of like a dead man walking at that point. I think everybody knew, you know, the writing was on the wall, and Bradford got hurt. I mean, you know, to me, I'm just excited that I think that Vrabel and McDaniels see things the same way in terms of, you know, don't tell me what I don't have. You know, whatever I have at my disposal, like how do I win the game that week? Like, you know, we're not gonna, if the guys can't block up front for whatever reason, injury, performance, whatever, like we're not gonna drop Drake May back like 45 times in a game. Like we're gonna figure it out. We're gonna go short passes. We're gonna go quick passing game. You know, he has the ability to, whether it's a, you know, go with 5 wide and go hurry up, or, you know, put in fullback and 2 tight ends, like, you know, whatever they need that week. And Vrabel's the same way as far as the team and the defense. You know, I think it's going to be a really good marriage for the Patriots.
Let's talk about PrizePicks, Greg.
PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long with PrizePicks. I did my picks for this weekend. I didn't get a new read, but it seems like there's a Jayden Daniels basically free square this weekend because all he needs is to pass for 1 passing yard, and you get that square. It's playoff time, and it's now or never. Don't miss out on the last few weeks of football action with PrizePicks, the best place to win cash while watching the playoffs. PrizePicks now offers MasterCard for quick and easy deposits into your account this sports season. Which players are going off, which ones aren't. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on PrizePicks. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game.
There's been a conversation over the last day or so, Greg, about the personalities of Josh McDaniels and Mike Vrabel. Burt Breer, your guy, went on Zoe and Bertrand today and said that there have been questions raised about the personality fit between those two guys. Your thoughts? Do you have any concerns about McDaniels and Vrabel working together?
Can you give me a little bit more context? Like what?
I can't. I literally pulled up a tweet, and it's a video that's 17 minutes long. But
I know I was just about to watch that as well. So I guess we both saw the same tweet.
I know Mike Giardi wrote something, right? Didn't he? Mike wrote something on BSJ about how McDaniels is, what was the term? I don't want to say like harsh, but it was something along those lines of that.
Oh,
he can be
about like coaching the quarterback. I think Giardi said something about like he could be harsh when it comes to coaching the quarterbacks, whereas Alex Van Pelt was very like calming, soothing for Drake May. Like,
okay, so here's what Giardi wrote. I pulled it up. There's a question about the differing approach style that McDaniels will bring versus what AVP did. A source said, yeah, quote, Alex has a gentler touch. Josh can be abrasive. They better be sure that's something the quarterback is good with. So they're just overall, generally speaking, there are questions about McDaniels and how his personality will fit with Vrabel, with Drake May. What can you tell us about McDaniels?
I mean, I don't really see any issues. I mean, because I view, Vrabel's Vrabel, and he's prickly and demanding, and talking to people in Tennessee, they said one of the things about him is like sometimes players can get into his doghouse, and it takes a while for them to get out, and especially if you don't give effort or don't exhibit mental toughness. There's some things about injuries, like soft tissue injuries, that he's not real tolerant of. But you also have to remember that Mike Vrabel coached under Bill O'Brien and rose to be Bill O'Brien's defensive coordinator. And Bill O'Brien's a great guy, but he's also known as Teapot. And he'll get after people. I mean, I see Josh and Billy sort of the same, similar. I think Josh puts a little bit more of a better packaging on it, but no, I don't really get those concerns at all. I mean, they're both competitive. They're both demanding, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
I think the Patriots have a bunch of hardos on the staff now. And, some people think hardo can be a bad term. I know Wolf and Mayo said we want to be, less hard ass. That obviously didn't work out. I think there's a balance. I think Vrabel strikes that balance with empathy and sympathizes with players at times and creates a good connection with them. But I think when you look at, Terrell Williams, who we'll talk about in a minute, you look at McDaniels, you look at Vrabel, they do kind of have this hardo, we want to be physical, we want to be violent. We're more than willing to get into the fight with you if we got to get into the fight with you. And honestly, those are my kind of people, Greg. So I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it if they want to have that kind of vibe, as long as they can balance it out a little bit. Let me ask you this. The one thing I am concerned about over the last 24 hours, you mentioned this a little bit a couple minutes ago. So Tony Dews, who was the Jets running backs coach, he was with Vrabel for a while down in Tennessee. He's being brought onto the offensive staff. Now, it has not, at least I haven't seen, maybe you've heard word from sources. I don't know what title he's going to have. I know people made the leap that he's been a running backs coach, so he's going to be the running backs coach. He's also been a tight ends coach, and he played tight end in college. So I don't know what title he has, but my concern is Mike Vrabel pulling a Bill Belichick here and, saying, okay, we got Josh, but I'm going to bring my guys in, and this is going to be like my offensive staff that Josh gets to run with. I hope that Josh has a significant say with these hires to the offensive staff, and I would hope that he will get at least a couple, if not a few, of his guys here in New England with him.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing. Tony Dews is a guy that a lot of people in Tennessee credited him with they were really good with, like, whether it was Derrick Henry or Dion Lewis, when he left the Patriots and were there, and there was a guy from the Cowboys, I think, running back. But anyways, he did a really good job there. And Mike, from what I understand, Vrabel moved him to tight ends to sort of progress his career, like help him down the line. But he's known as a really good running backs coach. And it is interesting. I mean, I think Vrabel thinks very highly of him. I agree with you. Especially when it comes to, with this offense, the offensive line and the wide receivers. To me, those are the key hirings that we're talking about when it comes to Josh McDaniels like offense. But then again, if they keep bringing in Titans guys, maybe he's not running the Josh McDaniels offense, and we'll have to see. I mean, I would be surprised. I don't understand the point of hiring Josh McDaniels if you're not going to run what he wants to do, what's been proven over the years with different players and different quarterbacks. But yeah, I guess we'll have to see how that turns out.
You know what is proven? The Game Time app. Tell the people about it, Greg.
I was just looking on there. If you want to go to Rockets Celtics, $89 all in. That's on the 27th, wow. Monday, 7:30 p.m. That's row 8 in 300 level. Pretty good. Game Time. I found that through Game Time Picks. Filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I love the all-in pricing. Toggling in this feature shows the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. They have seat views. Get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. That's a must for me. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time.
Terrell Williams time here in New England as the defensive coordinator. Like it, love it, hate it. How do you feel?
I'll give another option. I don't really care. Is that wrong? Yeah, indifferent. I guess indifferent would be the other option. Because I mean, I don't know if that's wrong, but like, look, I just view it as it's Vrabel's defense as opposed to Gerard Mayo. Mike Vrabel will actually be involved on the defensive side. We'll probably set the game plan. Will probably be involved in the play calling on defense. But I do think, Terrell Williams is well thought of around the league. He's been around, his leadership, very smart, has sort of, done it all for Vrabel. So, a good lieutenant for him to have, and somebody who Mike knows can get things done during the week as he's dealing with things.
I know I'm going to sound like a homer, and I could not give two shits, not one, not two, because I've said this before the hires were made. I wanted Mike Vrabel. I wanted Mike Vrabel before Gerard Mayo. I thought Mike Vrabel was the best guy that was out there. I don't care that he caught touchdowns for the Patriots. I don't care he played for the Patriots. I don't care if he talked to Bill Belichick. I don't care about any of it. The dude is a good coach, if not really good coach. I would consider him to be at least somewhere near in the top 10 as soon as he steps back into the league. Josh McDaniels, I think, is a good, if not very good, offensive coordinator. I'm a fan of Jeremy Springer and what he did last year and how he kind of resurrected that special teams. Terrell Williams, I don't know. I don't know if he can do the job. But like Greg said, I'm very confident that Vrabel will make sure that things are settled on that side of the football. I would say if you're a Patriots fan, you should be very, very happy with this coaching staff so far. And I think if you're angry about this staff or you're disappointed in this staff, you fell in love with the unknown, which I get. You fell in love with the idea of, Ben Johnson's going to come in here and, he's going to throw things around like Greg just threw his mic around. He's going to get people all excited about it, right? I understand. I understand you not being as excited for the Mike Vrabel hire because offense is fun and Ben Johnson is fun and trick plays are fun. I think this staff so far is just damn good. And I don't know, Greg, how you feel about it, but the coordinators so far, I think Mike Vrabel's doing a damn good job.
I completely agree. I mean, I think they're off to a really good start. I think, we're talking about the Patriots are back to being a professional outfit with adults in charge, like I said. I mean, this all started going downhill for the Patriots when McDaniels left for Vegas. And then it's basically been a clown show, ever since with Bill, thinking that he could do X, Y, and Z. I can make up for it. And we all know the misfires time and time again. And, as long as they continue, especially on the offensive side of the ball, to, align with what McDaniels needs, I think the Patriots are in a much better position going into next year. I think if you put this coaching staff in charge of the team last year, I think we're talking about a team that probably wins 6-7 games in terms of, how they approach things. And I think, I would also make the argument that if McDaniels was in charge last year of the offense, I think Drake May would have started week 1. And I think he would have been, well ahead of things and knowing how to deal with things on the offensive side of the ball that they couldn't under Alex Van Pelt, couldn't really change things. I'm excited to see Drake May with the ability to change protections and change routes, once we get there. And I think it's going to be the best thing for him. Like, he's going to understand a lot more. Whereas the West Coast offense, for a long time, it's those guys just, they think their scheme handles everything and their play calls handle everything. And that's not the way it is. The beauty about this Patriots offense is that it should, provided everybody's on the same page, it should give you the answers to just about every test you see as an offense. And so I think that's a great place to start. What Springer did with the special teams was really good last year. And we all know Vrabel knows how to play defense. So great start for the Patriots.
One conversation that drives me nuts is the ceiling conversation. This idea like Ben Johnson has a higher ceiling. How do we know that? Right. Also, do we understand what Mike Vrabel's ceiling was in Tennessee? He took the Titans with Ryan Tannehill to the AFC Championship game and lost to Patrick Mahomes. That's a pretty good ceiling. And if he had a better quarterback, he might have beaten Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes. So what are we talking about? I'd also say, the other pushback to some of this is, well, Vrabel took over this, monster of a roster, which isn't necessarily true. He took over a roster that had 3 Pro Bowlers, I think it was, and one of them was the punter. But here's what I would say. And you and I have talked about this before, Greg, on this podcast. And I keep saying this, and it keeps ringing true. When I worked in Virginia Beach, when I worked for ESPN Radio, when I worked in Sacramento, and I did more kind of national NFL stuff, I would always say, and I've said it on this pod, there's always 4 or 5 top teams, cream of the crop, every year. And there's always 4 or 5 bottom of the barrel teams. And then there's a bunch stuck in the middle, the meat of the sandwich. So there's about 20, 22 teams in the middle, okay? Those teams are going to range from 5, 6 wins to 9 wins, all of them. There's a huge difference, and I need to emphasize this. There's a huge difference between a head coach that can take a football team to a 9-win season and backdoor themselves into the playoffs and maybe win a playoff game versus a head coach that can get that same team to the AFC Championship game or win 12 games. The difference between a coach that can get you to 9 wins and 12 wins is massive, folks. Massive. And that's, people lose that idea. People think, oh, he just took a 9-win team and they just made he ended up winning 12 games with that. NFL teams, to go from that middle pack to a top 4 or 5 contender, which is what Vrabel made that team, that's the biggest leap. The biggest leap isn't going from the bottom of the barrel like the Patriots right now to a 6 or 7 win team. The biggest leap is taking a team that competes and making them a contender. And Vrabel took a team that can compete and made them a legitimate contender. That's as high of a ceiling as you can get in the NFL. So can we stop with the ceiling talk? It makes no sense. It's silly. We dismiss it. I'm talking for Greg. As a podcast, we dismiss ceiling talk. It's gone in the garbage. Speaking of that, Commanders in the NFC Championship, Greg, they are one of those teams, certainly a contender now. Can the Patriots make that kind of a leap?
Let me answer that as soon as I tell you about Factor meals. Ready to optimize your nutrition this year? Factor has chef-made gourmet meals that make eating well and easy. They're dietitian approved. They're ready to heat and eat in 2 minutes so you can fuel right and feel great no matter what life throws at you. Factor arrives fresh and fully prepared, perfect for any active, busy lifestyle with 40 options across 8 dietary preferences on the menu each week. It's easy to pick meals tailored to your goals. Choose from the preferences like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto. Keto are the ones that I go to. They're ridiculously delicious. I had a creamy pesto pork chop with spinach, cauliflower rice, and roasted green beans. It was delicious. The sauce is always on point. Blows me away how they do it. It's never over-seasoned or under-seasoned. It's always great. The taste is awesome. Factor can help you feel your best all day long with wholesome smoothies, breakfast, grab-and-go snacks, and more add-ons. Reach your goals this year with ingredients you can trust and convenience that can't be beat. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/Bedard50 off and use code Bedard50 off to get $50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code Bedard50 off at factormeals.com/Bedard50 off. You get $50 off, 50% off. God bless it. Off plus free shipping on your first box. So that's 50% off, not $50, 50%. It's probably a better deal. So, anyways, the Commanders, and I've sort of talked about this on Felger and Maz a little bit with Zanis, but the thing that I want people to understand about the Commanders and what they've done this year is they basically hit the lottery ticket. It's not just Jayden Daniels. I mean, everything worked for them. They tried to middle it. Okay. They tried to go, they definitely drafted well. They went with a lot of aging veterans who they're experienced, unlike the Patriots coaches, their experienced coaches had been with. They knew that they would come in and do things. You had Cliff Kingsbury, who was able to scheme around an offensive line that was pretty shaky. It's not that good. It's not that talented, but a capable offensive coordinator can, like a Cliff Kingsbury, like a Josh McDaniels, can scheme around that and make a bad line look better than it is. And I think that's what they did. Of course, Jayden Daniels has been, outstanding, but they also, they got lucky with, they brought in guys like, Wiley, Eckler, Ertz, Allegretti, Wagner, Luvu, Chin, Fowler, all these guys, they're aging veterans. Chin's not that old, but none of these guys got hurt. I mean, Zach Ertz couldn't stay on the field the previous 5 years. All of a sudden he plays 17 games this year. And so, they got a little bit fortunate. Now, I will say this, Nick, I think Elliott Wolf and hopefully Ryan Cowden helps him with this. And I think he will. I think Vrabel, they're more apt to try the Commanders approach this year than they were last year. But Elliott Wolf has a blind spot to, the bringing in some veterans along with building through the draft, because in where he's been when he was with the Packers, when he was with the Browns, with John Dorsey, all they tried to do was stockpile picks, draft picks, and, just put those guys in, play them, get better that way. They ignored spending money or, any sort of substantial money on veterans. And I think that's why the Commanders had a bigger leap. Good for them. It could have went the other way. The Titans did the exact same thing, and they ended up in the same place as the Patriots. It did not work out, for the Titans for a variety of ways, probably because they didn't have Jayden Daniels. But, a lot of those guys didn't work out that they signed. We thought, and I know some, guys like Felger, they were like, the Titans had the ideal offseason. Nobody talked about the Commanders. They looked at the Titan, look at the money they're spending. They, all these guys that they signed, whether it was that running back, offensive line, Calvin Ridley, all this stuff. You looked at it and you're like, okay, they're going after it. And they ended up like 4-13 like the Patriots. So what the Commanders did was extremely rare. I do think the Patriots will try to do that. I do think now having people, whether it's McDaniels with the people that he brought in Las Vegas, you have Ryden Cowden knowing the Giants and the Titans. You have Vrabel obviously knowing the Titans and the Browns. You have Terrell Williams knowing the Titans. And where was he? Was he with the Titans last year? Lions. Sorry, he knows the Lions. Like, you have all these guys now coming in from different places who can vouch for players and be like, this guy's good. He's our kind of guy. That's where I think the Patriots are going to make their biggest impact, sort of bringing in those like mid-level veteran free agents, like the Ertzes, like the Ecklers, that can sort of raise the floor. So that's what I'm looking for out of the Patriots.
I liked Vrabel's answer to the Greg Hill show when he was asked about free agency, and what he said is pretty much what you're saying. Everybody kind of pays attention to the tippity top of the free agent signings, but there's a lot of other guys that sign contracts, and so. Yeah, I think he might have also said this in the introductory press conference, but the idea of, hey, I was one of those guys, Vrabel has said, right? I was one of those guys that I teams weren't calling me. They weren't in love with the idea of bringing me in, but there was opportunity. So there's a couple ways that you can skin the free agency cat. You can certainly go out there and spend top of the market money and bring in talent like a Ronnie Stanley or an Alaric Jackson or a T. Higgins. And the Patriots, I do think, will at least try to do that. But we also have to remember, as Greg is mentioning, there are other free agents that can be quality signings that can build the depth of a football team and just make you better. And that's what ended up happening with Washington. And I think Vrabel is focused on doing both, pitching those big names, but also not neglecting, not ignoring the idea of there are other guys who might not be super hot on the market, but guess what? They'll help us be a better football team. All right, let's run through some NFL news here quickly. Little lightning round for you before we get to our picks. Shad Khan, baby, in Jacksonville, decides to fire Trent Baalke, who he decided to keep at the end of the season. He now has fired his GM in the middle of a head coaching search after Liam Cohen decided to drop out of the race. I mean, I'm not going to say stunned, but holy crap, what a mess.
Yeah, I mean, just an absolute disaster. And I like Shad. I think he's a good owner in that he stays out of things and he empowers his people and then gets out of the way. He's not one of these owners that's, even though you have to deal with his son, Tony Khan, who I also like, who's part of the quote unquote analytics of the Jaguars. But at least, Shad's not in there on Monday or after the game being like, why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? He empowers his people, but I don't know who's advising them on how they do these things. I mean, it's the same thing like when they kept Dave Caldwell for a while and kept, and kept bringing in head coaches and like, these arranged marriages, they never work. I mean, it was so predictable when they said, well, we're keeping Trent Baalke, that people weren't going to like that setup. Like, you want alignment, and keeping Baalke there took that off the board. Now it's different. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if people are going to come back to them and be like, okay, now I'm more open to it, but just a huge misstep. And these owners are idiots, even if they're very smart in business.
Which brings me to Jerry Jones. So you got Mike McCarthy. You hold on to Mike McCarthy until the middle of January. you apparently did not even negotiate a contract with McCarthy as he just sat there on his contract. You didn't let him go to Chicago to interview, which makes you look petty and ridiculous when all is said and done. You then decide we're not going to keep Mike McCarthy. You throw out Deion Sanders' name to get a bunch of headlines because Jerry loves headlines. And now, Greg, we're hearing that they're close. They could be closing in on Brian Schottenheimer to be their next head coach. How you feeling about that?
This is like Jason Garrett all over again. Schottenheimer is like the offensive Dave Campo. I mean, Jerry and his ego, they need somebody that they can push around. They just put somebody in there that'll listen to them and do what they want. And it's just like, why, considering especially 2 years ago, like, look, last year, especially defensively, Dan Quinn leaves, the talent went down on defense. Like, most of their issues were on defense. The offensive line was a problem. Like, most of their issues were in personnel. 2 years ago, Dak Prescott had the best season of his career under Mike McCarthy. And now, for what reason are you not going to re-sign Mike McCarthy? You really think that Brian Schottenheimer's an upgrade over Mike McCarthy? I mean, to me, when they moved on from McCarthy, I'm like, it's either going to be Kellen Moore or it's going to be somebody like Brian Schottenheimer. And here we are.
My guess was Kellen Moore. Just think about it. The fact that Jerry kind of just waited with McCarthy, took him out of the conversations with other top guys like Vrabel, like, Aaron Glenn, who we'll talk about in a second, Ben Johnson. Sitting around doing nothing with Mike McCarthy, you just wasted time. You literally just wasted time. And if I was going to put my tinfoil hat on, I could say maybe Schottenheimer's an interim head coach for a year until Bill Belichick is able to get out of that UNC contract. That's something dicey, huh? That's something to chew on. Boston Sports Talk, let's go. I'm sure somebody will pick that up and run with it. But can you really see? I mean, like Greg just said, Jerry Jones' track record with coaches after Jimmy Johnson. Can you imagine Belichick's ego versus Jerry Jones's ego in that building? That building would explode within 2 weeks. It would literally just blow up. Aaron Glenn to the Jets. Do you like it?
I'm not sure. I mean, the only thing I know about Aaron Glenn, and I do think he did a nice job with the Lions defense as the years went on. And they had a ton of injuries. They finally ran out of bodies, especially when Amik Robertson went out. In that game against the Commanders. So I know he's intense, and I know the compete level is going to be up. I remember the Hard Knocks with the Lions, and he's talking trash with all the offensive coaches and going up against them, and Deuce Staley and all that stuff. I mean, that's great. I have no idea what kind of head coach he's going to be. I mean, obviously as a defensive head coach, his hiring of the offensive coordinator is going to be the key thing, and how long he stays and all that. So, look, if I'm the Patriots and I look at the landscape in the AFC East, I feel pretty good about having Mike Vrabel at this point. I mean, I personally think that Vrabel's the best head coach in the division. Even ahead of Sean McDermott, who I think almost cost the Bills again in the game last weekend. We'll see how they do in Kansas City, but we'll see. To me, it's all about the offense, and they need a quarterback. So let's see what happens.
Ben Johnson of Chicago, was that the right hire?
Yeah, I think so. I think that they had to go with Caleb Williams. They had to go and get him an offensive system, an offensive guru, pair those guys together. The Patriots got to that point in a roundabout way with Josh McDaniels, who probably isn't going anywhere anytime soon. But it seems like Ben Johnson is certainly putting together, a good staff with, I know Darren Rizzi has been mentioned, defensive coordinator, possibly Dennis Allen, all that stuff. I don't know what's been done and what hasn't been done yet. But another guy we're going to have to see, like, what kind of head coach are you? I mean, I've always thought the world of Josh McDaniels, but him as a head coach did not work out well twice for different reasons. But, who's Ben Johnson going to be as a head coach? We'll have to see, but I think it at least gives Caleb Williams a much better chance to live up to that first overall draft pick.
Tell the fine people about No Turno, Greg.
The Patriots got a new coach, and now it's your turn to get a new furnace. Who knew a new coach would help you score the best deal on a new heating system? My friends at Naterno Home Services are making it easy to upgrade your heating without breaking the bank. Get a brand new gas furnace for just $6,295. And here's the kicker. 0% financing for 18 months with zero down. That's as low as $12 a day to stay warm all winter long, and it is freaking freezing out right now. And it gets even better. A new furnace means you'll lower your energy bills by up to 15% and have cleaner and healthier air. And guess what? Interno is throwing in 1 year of free filters. That's 4 filters absolutely free to keep your system running smoothly all year long. I just got my heating system replaced by Naterno. It was awesome. They were timely. Somebody always picked up the phone. Scheduling was easy. Got it done in like a week. They went above and beyond the Call of Duty, getting me that new valve when my heating system was crapping out before the installation was put in. And their professionalism was outstanding. Absolutely top notch. But don't wait. This offer ends on February 1st. Visit NaturnoHome.com/new coach. That's NOTTURNO home.com/new coach for all the details, or call my friends at Naterno at 508-422-4296 to schedule your free estimate and lock in your best price of the season. Naterno Home Services, where comfort and savings come together. I trust Naterno, and so should you.
Some other recommendations for you. Check out BSJ, $50 for the year. Bedard Giardi tag teaming this Patriots coverage. A lot of news coming out. A lot more news I'm sure will be coming out. We got the rest of the staff to fill out, and you've got free agency. You got the draft. Also download PrizePicks, that app today. Use code CLNS. Get $50 instantly when you play $5. Check out Game Time while you're on the phone. Download that app and see if you can buy some tickets using Game Time. Use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. And also eat smart with Factor. Factormeals.com/Bedard50 off. Use code Bedard50 off to get 50%, Greg, 50% off your first box plus free shipping. Commanders, Eagles giving 6. Who you got?
I like the Eagles in their run game. If there's one weakness on the Commanders, it's their defense against the run. I just think the Eagles are just too good, too big up front. They've played each other twice. Eagles won the first one. The Commanders won the second one, but that's when Hurts got hurt. Kellen, or I don't even know if they played people. All I know is Kellen. No, what's his name? Kenny Pickett played that game for the Eagles. I think Hurts got hurt in that game.
He did. He got concussed.
He got concussed. I like the Eagles in this game. I don't think that they cover. I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be back and forth. But I do think the Eagles, just at the end of the day, being at home, their big physical offensive line, Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts. We'll have to see how hurt he is in terms of can he run and be a factor like he was last weekend. So I like the Commanders to cover, but the Eagles to win.
I like the Eagles. I would pick the Eagles minus the 6 if I knew how healthy Jalen Hurts was. That's such a big question to me. So I do think this game could be closer because of that. Saquon Barkley has played the Commanders twice this year. I think he has a combined almost 300 rushing yards. So the Commanders have not been able to stop Saquon Barkley. But again, if the quarterback is banged up, man, it's such a tough call. I guess I'll take the Commanders with the points. I wish I had more information on Hurts. All right, Bills at the Chiefs. Chiefs minus 1.5.
I really want to pick the Bills. I think it's their time, but I don't know. I just can't. And it's because of Sean McDermott. I mean, I just don't. I just think he got lucky. He got uber conservative to open up the second half when they needed to put the pedal down. I think that Andy Reid and Spagnuolo have a big advantage over Joe Brady and Sean McDermott. I don't think the Bills will be afraid. I think that'll be a great game. But I see the Chiefs winning a game by 3 just because they know how to do it, and the Bills and Sean McDermott do not.
Give me the Bills, baby. Come on.
Whoa.
Give me Buffalo. This is more of an emotional choice. I'm going with Buffalo. Come on. Somebody's going to knock off Mahomes and Andy Reid. Enough is enough. I've seen enough of them in the Super Bowl. I do not need to see the Chiefs again in the Super Bowl this year. Give me the Buffalo Bills. Again, more emotional. That's more with my heart than my head. He's Greg. I'm Nick. I got to go eat lunch. I don't know what he's doing, but enjoy your weekend. Everybody be awesome. Enjoy the football. Back early next week.